Welcome to our webinar. We're excited to have you. I always typically open with good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Thanks so much for joining us. We're going to cover two truths and a lie. Our marketing edition, basically diving into the digital landscape. Things have changed a lot over the last few years, more so than ever before. So we're kind of looking back on things from years past and looking forward on what we're seeing in today's landscape. So let's dive in. I want to introduce you to Vincent. He's joining me here, kind of putting him on the spot. So Vincent, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Vincent, and I manage partnerships as well as business development here with Expert Marketing Advisors.
And thrilled to have you.
Thank
We
you.
have a lot of fun each day, and always great to kind of put folks on the pedestal and be able to speak about the different things that we encounter. I'm Courtney, and the founder of Expert Marketing Advisors, and really I always kind of say that I like to kind of sit back and try to stay out of the way and let the team shine and lean in with our various passions. All righty, let's talk about digital marketing. So Vincent, tell me, what's the landscape of digital marketing look like today?
Yeah, so these are just the various different components of digital marketing. It's really important to have a mix of different inbound and outbound tactics and different channels that you're leveraging. So on the left here, we have, you see the marketing channels includes both paid and organic. And we like to start off and double down on the organic and find things that are working there before we start putting money and doubling down on those wins with the paid efforts. On the right-hand side, you'll see the sales and partner channels. And, sales is a good tactic or important to have those outbound efforts there. And then for partners, it's really important to leverage. And we found this to be extremely successful for us. And that allows us to grow and extend our network significantly. So, and then at the bottom, these are other components that'll help drive your marketing. And that's with the customer and advocate channels. And consists of like PR and AR efforts, webinars, which we'll touch later on. But that pretty much provides the landscape of digital marketing right there.
Yeah, and I'll just kind of reiterate the organic is where we like to. We work with high growth companies. We certainly want to make sure we're spending their money properly and we're being very conscious. The organic is an easy way to ensure we're identifying the wins. Once we've got that, identified, of course, we're going to double down and really get the paid channels going. On the sales side, to Vincent's point, the sales and partners can lean in, of course, with the inbound and outbound, but doing those calls and converting all the marketing activities over to opportunities and meetings. Folks often ask, once they've launched and once they've really got things going, how do they exponentially grow? And I always recommend look at those channels and look at those partner programs. And if you can lean in with any of your tech alliances and folks of those sorts, you can really double down on those efforts. On the customer marketing side, it's a huge opportunity if you can get your customer voice out there and let them tell the story for you. And the product value just really kind of speaks for itself there. And that's where your media and your press stories will come from there. Great. So what does it take? What are the skills that are needed to execute digital marketing? What are you looking for in your team? So let's talk about some of that. Vincent, putting you on the spot yet once again.
Right. So obviously it's important to have a very important or a good website developed. And on your website, you want to have, the assets like slide decks, videos, blogs. In order to create those assets, then, you need a good copywriter and ghostwriter. And, these are all just like Courtney was saying, these are different skill sets that you want to have part of your team. And you want to make sure your team has these capabilities. So operations management kind of ties in with the tech stack. Hygiene, you want to make sure that your data, which we'll get into later, is in good quality and is properly maintained. And messaging is obviously very important as you find your, you find and refine your ideal customer profile, and you're able to target better with good messaging. And then that also ties in with your design and brand. And then social media management is something that's no longer a nice to have, but is something that's very necessary. And we found that to have a lot of success, especially recently with our social selling and our social outreach.
Yeah, no, one thing to say about this is we really, over the years, you'll notice that it's not just one person that can really have all of these various skills under their hat. As folks refine their different passions, and you get really good on the creative side. The operation side is drastically different than design and brand and the creative. But it's really great to bring it all together and have everything kind of running in the same direction and be cohesive as a team.
Right.
Great. More to it on the strategy side, of course. This is bringing it all together as you're putting out campaigns. You want to make sure you're identifying where those wins are and clearing out those bottlenecks. The program side map into specific campaigns, but getting that sort of inbound and outbound tactics set and what those activities are, and then see where we can really put something more specific for your audience together. Event side on the digital component, we're over the last couple of years, as I'm sure you've all seen, physical is also merged with virtual, and we've got these hybrid events. PR and AR, this is where you're really leveraging the digital component too. Media is actually mapping over to your blogs as well, and really getting that extra footprint out there. SEO and SEM speaks for itself, but getting that page one ranking, whether it's paid for or earned, and just identifying those keywords to where your audience is searching for you. And then, of course, sales enablement and partner enablement, as we already touched on, pulling those marketing activities through to ensure your sales org and your partners are able to leverage the goodness that you're creating. Great. Anything on that one, Vincent?
No. I think we should move on to the busting these marketing myths. All right, cool.
Yes. So back to our theme: 2 truths and a lie. So I'll put you on the spot. Let's
awesome.
Look at the key focus areas that move the needle.
Right. So let's choose the lie. Let's play a little game here. Obviously, 2 truths and 1 lie. So the first statement is data is king. Second is social media is a must-have for all B2B companies. And the last statement is webinars drive lead generation for marketing programs. And drum roll, please. And the lie here is webinars are drive lead generation for marketing programs. So I think there's kind
maybe
of
a little controversial here.
Yeah.
But this is something that we're seeing again, 5 years ago, 10 years ago versus today. Webinars are no longer the tactic that would be listed among the top 5 for lead generation. My background is demand gen. I'm a numbers person, and we have definitely seen the appetite for webinars has declined. But here we are on a webinar ourselves. So, what does this mean? It means you really would look at webinars now, so more so as a thought leadership asset, the recording, and really as a component that you would use for your SEO strategy as well. So we'll dive into that in a little bit. But let's go back to the first one. Data is king. Mm-hmm. So diving into that piece, what makes your data? What brings this all together? So, as we all look at the left-hand side of your pipe here, I'm not sure if you can see the arrow moving.
Yes, we see it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So, this is an example of, our experience comes from specifically B2B tech companies and working with folks sort of, again, in the high growth stage. But sort of what you would see is a typical marketing funnel on the top there, mapping through to your sales pipe. And on the left, the various tools that you might encounter as you're building that out to support your tech stack or to support your pipelines. Pretty common ones, obviously, ZoomInfo, Marketo, which we're more commonly now seeing HubSpot is kind of taking over that landscape, perhaps because of the Adobe acquisition. Usually when folks go through acquisitions, and there's an opportunity for competitors to kind of lean in there. Sales Often Outreach are interchangeable. Didn't mean to overstep. Zoom webinar, obviously we're on one now. And then you've got the CRMs of the bunch, right? So HubSpot is also a CRM. Competitor with Salesforce is the beast of the bunch. And then you've got your Microsoft Dynamics, which is a little bit more of the legacy of the crew, which have also come out with their own marketing automation tool as well.
Mhm.
So regardless of what you choose on your Microsoft, regardless of what you choose on your tech stack, as you set up your pipeline and your marketing funnel, what's most important is making sure that they all flow together. And as your tools push out new releases and you've got everything mapped together, this is where, making sure your CRM is the single source of truth, and it is actually, their data is clean and the hygiene is kept all together in one place. So bringing that all together, the data is king.
Right.
So
that brings us to our next Mythbuster. So we're going to play the game again, and you're going to choose a lie. So first statement is operations managers are very important. The second is data in your CRM is your single source of truth. And the last statement is you should always question your data.
this is kind of a tough one.
This is a tough one, and we might be contradicting ourselves a little bit here, but we'll explain further. And so the lie here is actually going to be the second statement. Data in your CRM is your single source of truth. So Court, I know you mentioned, that obviously your CRM should be be your primary source for your data, but you want to kind of touch on why that's the lie?
Well, yeah, I mean, so again, going back 5-10 years ago, this was the common phrase, your CRM is your single source of truth. Salesforce this was something that folks would say to kind of drill it in. This is where we point all your sales folks to. This is where we point, obviously, your revenue folks. And you find, at the end of the day, your board is looking and evaluation is taking place. So it was a common term or a common phrase that you would hear. Part of why we're kind of calling this out is, again, we want to make sure all of your tools that map into your CRM are kept up to date. The hygiene is clean, and you really have this goes back to your operations managers, and really everything is flowing together. So we definitely recommend that you keep a regular cadence around your hygiene, and you've got things set up properly. So number 3, question your data. Lift up the rock, look under the hood. We do go into the individual tool sets themselves to look at how they're reporting on data and what's taking place within each of those. And then, of course, how that is reflected in your actual CRM, which is where where you should be pointing everybody. But it is a complicated web of operations and tools as we keep layering on more and more. Great. Anything around that? We also encourage everybody to chime in. There's a Q&A box there, so feel free to ask questions along the way.
Cool. And then now we're moving on to social media, and I talked about earlier how it's not a nice to have anymore, but a must have. And so here we're going to dive into some of the best practices to grow your social media marketing.
Yeah. So, I mean, on the left there is an example of what we've seen, just incredible uptick, incredible just burst of engagements and conversions and growth. That's just an example. Actually, that would be, sorry, that's on the right.
Yeah.
I don't have enough coffee in me. But basically, pre-COVID, and we're all thinking in the world of pre-COVID versus post-COVID, social media is just completely taken off. And it's just an incredible appetite for people to interact and engage with each other on channels such as LinkedIn and Twitter and the likes of. These are the 2 that we would recommend for B2B. LinkedIn is, of course, where you're going to find your decision makers, and Twitter is where you're going to find your influencers. Some best practices there on the left is try as much as possible to keep things around the industry, curated content, and then 20% lead back to your actual website and around your own original content, the branded pieces. It's a tough thing to do. Folks typically do want to push things back to themselves. So it's kind of a tricky balance there. I also, of course, keep everything very much centered around expert thought leadership and valuable content that folks will want to engage with. And then keeping things around your messaging. This is the digital marketing component, the kind of bringing that all back to one solid voice and your tone for consistency. And what you're doing across one channel, you can do, of course, across the other channels. And trying to getting as much bang for your buck. Great.
Awesome.
Just a real world example. Again, it just blows me away at how much of an impact the social channels are making. So this was just more recently, Q1 of this year. Some results that we've seen. Just by turning the knobs ever so slightly, and just week over week and month over month, increases and impacts. So happy to dive in with some more specifics around this. If anyone is interested, please reach out and we'll show you the actual case study itself. Just incredible. So we're seeing this for ourselves as well. A lot of this translates over to social selling. All right, let's talk about programs.
Right. So, it's this is just a typical example of what it's like, or whatever our monthly demand gen cadence looks like. And we like to call this the hamster wheel. And we want to be as consistent as possible with this cadence. So whether we're running this, month one of Q1 or middle of the year, later in the year, we want to try and be consistent as possible with this, and just keep these things going. So this is where we pull in, the webinar monthly, running the SEO day and social media daily, continuing to push those assets there. Court, do you want to dive deeper?
Yeah, I mean, this kind of keeps the foundation going. So from here, then it's easy to scale and then layer on campaigns specifically around this, or do some segmented the targeted list poll, and then do some specific segments and outbound emails and sends and nurtures based off of your verticals or your industries. But getting the base foundation here where something is happening every single week. You're pushing a new asset out that's fulfilling a specific area or gap in your buyer journey. Have a blog that relates to your webinar so that the right hand is talking to the left. Up level your webinar so that the recording is then transcribed, and you can put that of course on your website, so you're getting that SEO value. And then the newsletter is a wrap up of essentially a minimum of those three things, and put a teaser as to what's coming around the corner for the next month. Once you kind of get that sort of muscle memory in place, then you can really start kind of breaking into specific campaigns and start segmenting again, of course, by either industry or audience.
Right.
Yeah. Some quick tips around this to really sort of, get some wins on the table. Once you've got your cadence there, start elevating your SEO. So something that we're seeing happen more and more is you identify your targeted keywords and spin up some knowledge centers or learning centers, glossary of terms. So if you're trying to go after specific AWS terms or specific some niche terms in your industry, SD-WAN this or that, or SaaS this or that, take those targeted keywords and turn them into knowledge center on your website, and those will really get you those, sort of move the needle for your page one ranking as you start to earn those in the long run. Another one that we're seeing more commonly, of course, is taking your press releases and repurposing them as blog topics, as blogs. Also just kind of gives you that moment in time. Taking the webinars, transcribing them for SEO, and including those on your website. People digest information in different ways, of course. So again, kind of going back to the original myth, webinars as a lead gen tool, people are not attending as much during the live webinar, but they are digesting them later and as a recording, or of course, reading the transcription. Taking the webinar and also turning it into a blog. So a blog topic is a great one too, to just kind of get as much bang for your buck. Then internal and external linking is important. So as you go through your different pages on your site, look for those keywords, link within your website, give your kind of sort of calcium for your bones, strengthen it. And then of course, look for those opportunities to link outward to perhaps your partners, or of course to your customers and other areas that it would make sense to, of course, increase your digital footprint and kind of that spider web effect. And then, I already mentioned uplifting webinars into blogs, upload replays on social media platforms. So don't discredit YouTube, take the recordings and push it out there on YouTube as well. We're finding a lot of traction there and have that presence. And then take smaller snippets and of course, and use those for social media too. And just have that constant presence there. I think those are some quick ones. There's quite a list there. Once you, again, kind of get that wheel turning, it gets easier and easier each time. Anything else on that one, Vincent? Putting you on the spot again.
No, I think we covered all the bases there. I'm not sure if you wanted to roll into the Q&A, if anyone has any questions for us. There's, I guess, one question that I've been posed very recently, or quite often, is, what is a channel that you've seen a lot of success with? And more, I'm starting to see the social media aspects of social selling is becoming very important. Social selling, in short, is just a way to engage and get to know your prospects through social media. We've seen LinkedIn be the primary source for us and for a lot of our clients as well. And it's really important in the B2B space to have your outreach done there. On Crunchbase, I was reading this article that said that 80% of salespeople that are using social media are outselling those who aren't. So I think that if that's something that you're not doing right now, you're going to find a lot of quick wins there, and it's a really important channel to leverage if you're not already.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's drastically different from 5 years ago to today. And just tracking the lead source from LinkedIn converting and the first meeting, 50% of our touches are coming through that channel alone. Yeah, that's a great call out for sure. Yeah, great question. Definitely on the social selling side, what does that mean and what does that look like? There's tools for that as well. It definitely keeps you busy, Vincent.
Very busy. There's a lot of times where I'm like, oh, did I miss that? Because there's just so many different messages rolling in, and it's just a really good way to connect with people in the community as well, even if you're not doing any social selling or just networking in general, and talking to other leaders and people in the community.
Another area that we're seeing come back, which is great to see, is the physical events. So I wanted to kind of keep on the radar if you're, and that'll translate very quickly over to the social side. We're putting for ourselves one event a month on the calendar, just for networking purposes. And of course, with the physical, we will translate that over to the link, our LinkedIn, growing our LinkedIn network.
And I attended one actually just a few days ago, and it's nice to see. I mean, obviously everyone wants to be cautious and careful with everything that's going on in the world, but I think it's nice to see that a lot of people are more and more willing to go out there and find other people in their industries, and there's just a longing for connecting in person now. I think that's becoming a bigger demand, I think.
Yeah, great. All right, well, thanks everyone for your time. If we didn't cover anything, or if there's anything that you ever want to talk about in general, I love talking shop. Certainly here to connect as well. So our contact at Expert Marketing Advisors, feel free to reach out as well. And we'll, of course, have the recording. So awesome. Thank you, Catherine. Appreciate it. Catherine. All right. And anyone else as well, of course, feel free. Thanks so much, everyone. We're going to go ahead and leave it here. Thanks.
Bye. Have a good one.